This is Howard Cosell. Welcome to the Straight Red Card, where it was confirmed today that Brett and Derek will be representing the U.S. Olympic team in the 2012 men's synchronized swimming pairs competition. Gentlemen. Oh, I didn't know we were involved in that, Brett, but I guess we are.
I'll have to talk to my agent.
You know what? But I'm glad they finally added men's synchronized swimming. I just thought that was really unfair and unbalanced.
Why aren't you glad about that? There's nothing good about that.
Well, it just evens things out, you know what I mean? But you're right. It's not something, unless I was involved in it like we're going to be, I'd watch. So my swimming's not real good. So, and I'll have to shave quite a bit of my hair off, so I'll float better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's start with the unfortunate U23. What is it?
It was a shameful 2 hours.
Yeah, it was kind of embarrassing and poorly played, and there are just so many things that just weren't right. But the first things that come out and stick out for me are two things. One, in particular, we look like we came out really overconfident, like we were supposed. It's a foregone conclusion. Yeah. And then the other thing was Canada came out with the opposite. They busted their butts. They played, all out the whole time. And they used our old, senior squad strategy. Quick counters with really fast guys and taking advantage of set pieces. And the best player on the field yesterday was Cavallini, I thought, for Canada. And I didn't know that he was Canadian, but he is. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I don't follow the Canadian team, but I know he plays abroad, but he was by far the best player on the field.
Well, I think it really showed that the Canadian youth team really did their homework when it came to scouting the U.S. team. I always said leading up into this that our biggest question mark was going to be our defense. We're rather suspect back there, to tell you the truth. We have some players that play professionally, but it's like our weakest spot of the team. Yeah,
Iko Para had a rough time on set pieces.
He had some plays that I really like Iko Para's 1v1 defense. Mm-hmm. He's very good on that, very good on winning the ball in the air, especially. But my big beef with him is that he seems to be rather weak when it comes to the passing. He always tends to pass it behind the player, and what that does is it forces the player to go back and recover it, and that wastes valuable seconds for the Canadian national team to advance and pressure.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I thought the U.S. team came out and played at the same pace that we played against Cuba, except for the big difference here is that Cuba is on a different level than Canada. Right. Canada came out, as you said, they came out playing balls to the wall. Right. They came out playing, pressuring, and the U.S. didn't recover. They didn't react to it. And instead, what they did is they tried to force everything. They didn't complete the quality possession game that we saw against Cuba and several friendlies before.
Right.
They just kept serving these long balls, or they tried to force it through all these Canadian defenders.
Long passes. Yep.
Yeah, and my big thing with Porter in this game is that he came into this game wanting the win with his quote-unquote A team. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we played the exact same squad minus Agudelo, who has a meniscus tear.
Right.
And we put up Bunbury up there, and it's the same squad that played 45 minutes to 90 minutes 2 days prior.
Right.
Whereas Canada came in and changed 7 players from the team that played El Salvador.
Yeah. Yep.
So they had a fresh team that came out and played, and I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, they looked fresh.
I think there's a reason. Yeah,
they absolutely looked fresh, and and they saved their best for this game. I think one thing that we could have used in yesterday's game was Josh Gott. I think that he probably would have really, with his speed, had we played at one of the back slots, would have countered the speed of the Canadian attack, because those guys are fast. They were really fast. I don't even know who they were. I didn't write down their names. But, you can't underestimate a team, this Canadian team, that has 8 overseas players. And not that it's it's a direct comparison, but we of course only have 6 players on our team that play overseas. We could have used Josh Gott yesterday. He could have cut off, I think, some of those attacks down the wings, some of those quick counterattacks that Canada used. But all in all, really, we didn't deserve to win because we didn't come out there, as you said, with the idea that we're going to methodically move the ball around and then find an opening and score. What we did, as you said, was a lot of long passes and then a lot of through passes that were on the ground, but they were squeezed into incredibly, ridiculously tight places, and we just looked more and more and more frustrated. I think you could tell that when Diskerud took that late throw in, and you could read his lips, and he said, "F it, we're going to do a long throw." It's getting to the point where desperation was definitely seeping into the American team.
And, to jump back to the fact that we only had one change and that was due to an injury, this squad is relatively deep. I mean, the difference between Boyd and Bunbury?
Not much, yeah.
Not much. What I would have liked to have seen would have been to start Joe Zhao. I think his pace and energy would have made a massive difference as far as the attack on the game. I would have started Boyd, just because that would have given him another chance. And while we're talking about Boyd, what's up with the Terrence Body on the roster? Is this somebody I don't know?
Yeah, I know.
I noticed this in the first game. I was just watching, and I'm like, wait, did that say Terrence Body?
2 times in a row. So the English announcer calling the game, obviously on his roster list, there's an error, and it doesn't say Boyd, it says Body, because obviously the D and the Y have been switched around. So he has an error there, and yet he doesn't know the team well enough to even be calling this game, really, honestly.
Perhaps somebody texted him the list and it autocorrected.
That must be it. But he also couldn't pronounce Joseph's name either, because he was doing Gowow. Joe Gowow. And then he kept mentioning Nickelback over and over again. So I finally looked it up, and I said, why does he keep talking about Nickelback? Well, there was a SB Nation article, apparently, that he was referencing throughout the game. I didn't know people read that when it came to soccer. But anyhow, they do, apparently. And one of the articles was the reason we need to beat Canada, Nickelback. Yeah, I mean, they're bad. I thought they sung the national anthem or something and got booed off. I really didn't know. But did you also catch the guy the American on the sideline after a foul called on the Americans, who yelled so out loud, "You're turning this," at the refs, "you're turning this into a field of lies." Did you hear that? A field of lies. Oh, my God, it was great. And, of course, the announcer picked up that, and he said, "Only in America would you hear that line." So, yeah, there were just some real funny technical issues. But here's the one thing. Why take Joe Corona off after one half? Don't get that.
Well, you know what? He was a ghost the entire first half. He maybe touched the ball 2 or 3 times. However, I agree. I don't know why you take him off. He's a player who is likely to create something out of nothing.
Right.
And he only needs that one chance.
That's true.
The same thing I would say about Freddie, although Freddie had a pretty solid performance.
Right.
Can't say that about too many players on the team.
No.
While we're talking about other teammates, I would, instead of starting Jeffrey again, I would have started Ogu.
Yeah, I think you have to make a change there. I guess generally, I don't know how much you can change, but something. They're going to have to do something a little different against El Salvador. But the bad news is, Brett, even if you beat El Salvador for the elimination semifinal, most likely we have to beat Mexico as well.
Yep. This performance, we can only hope that Cuba steps up.
Yeah.
Only hope that Cuba steps up against Canada.
Yeah.
And that's assuming they have enough players on their roster.
Yeah, and they haven't all defected by then. As Brian Sherda said last night on Twitter after the game, he said the U.S. has less than 50% chance of qualifying for the Olympics now. And you know what? Unfortunately, he's probably right. I can see us beating El Salvador. I don't know if we can then also beat Mexico after the way we played against Canada.
You see, that's another thing that really makes the lack of changes surprising, because we wouldn't have had an off game where we can just all relax. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if we would have beaten Canada, we would have had 6 points. We would have been guaranteed to move into the next round. However, if we would have lost to El Salvador, then El Salvador would have taken the first round spot. We still would have had to face Mexico.
Yep.
The only difference is we're guaranteed a spot in there now. Now we have two teams playing in the final game that really have to force a chance. Have to really force the game and see what they can produce. And in all honesty, Canada has the easiest route in right now.
Yeah, and there were other people who, they were saying, a lot of people blame Caleb Porter for this loss. I don't really know if you can blame him specifically. The players didn't perform. The formation we used was fine. No, I didn't think all the players used were the right players. But the only thing I can really fault him for, because he said after this game in an interview, we're going to really have to come out with our A game against El Salvador. We're no kidding, but he should have had this team mentally prepared to come out with their A game for this game, because they, like I said, they look presumptuous right off the bat.
Yeah, well, they're not as the players that really felt like that. I mean, after reading some of the quotes of Porter after the Cuba game, I certainly didn't think that he was,
Yeah, he said that this was. Yeah, he said it wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I don't think he was leading it into the game saying, you know what, we're just going to roll this over. We're gonna come in out and dominate and win it, and move on. But it could have just been the players. After a 6-0 win, a game a day later against a team they just recently beat before the qualifiers started. It's a confidence boost. And the problem is that if you don't come out and play, if you're coming out flat, it's going to make a massive difference.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.